especially within our community, that people who become teachers or people who do a profession that's associated with service, these are noble things, but they're not ambitious, right? You can't really be successful. It's not a traditional notion of success. So how do we disrupt that idea? What does a dharmic metric of success really look like? And how can we kind of evaluate what success really looks like within our community in a more holistic and integrated way that connects back to our dharma? If Umaji or Deepali, you want to take off from where Induji left off on that.
Yeah, I think I want to quickly jump in here, because while I was working at HAF, I got to interact with a lot of people from the State Department, which is a branch of the government, as well as other government organizations and entities like the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Here, there were a lot of decisions being made and a lot of things being written about Hindus or that affected Hindus, but not a lot of practicing devout Hindus were in these organizations. There were certainly people from other faiths represented, which is fantastic, but we didn't see a lot of devout practicing Hindus in these spaces. And the reason why I am emphasizing devout and practicing is sometimes there may be Indians or Hindus in that space, but they're the kind that don't like Hinduism and want to distance themselves from Hinduism as much as possible. So the first thing I would say is, how can we, think about success is broadening. For me, it's definitely broadening as a Hindu community, our idea of what different professions are available. Certainly, if you're, working at the State Department, you can work yourself up to very high levels. They're high-paying jobs, they're highly influential, they're very respectable, but not a lot of people, at least that aunties and uncles that I'm familiar with, would know about the State Department or the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. So, for me, it's very important that as I'm talking to, the older generations, and now as an expectant mother, I'm opening up those possibilities for the generations to come and the current Hindu youth in the United States to say, well, think about it. Medicine, engineering, those are great professions. Law, fantastic. Outside of those, there are organizations you can be a part of where you can be paid. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom is actually voluntary, but in the State Department, you can work at very high levels. You could be highly influential, and those are working in the government. You can also work for certain nonprofit organizations like Amnesty International that are saying things that affect Hindus in very real ways in places outside of the U.S. especially. But there are not a lot of Hindus that are interacting with this. Similarly, the United Nations needs a lot more devout practicing Hindus, people that feel their Hindu identity, no matter what their Hindu background is, but that they feel it deeply. They've gone deeply into it, and they value whatever they have learned from our sacred texts, whatever they have learned from our gurus. They value it. Those are the people we need in these spaces. So I would say the first step is to expand our understanding of what are the possible professions. I know growing up, we only saw a few professions. Like we saw, for example, teacher. We saw, a doctor when we went to the doctor's office. So if somebody asked us, what did we want to be? We would choose from whatever we have interacted with before. And the Hindu community, unfortunately, isn't interacting at the highest levels with the UN, with the State Department. So we need those doors to be opened up. And all the panelists, the attendees on this call are in a great position to support the next generations in taking these professions, studying political science, studying these things that are a little bit off the beaten path, that will create opportunities to actually be successful in new ways that maybe as a Hindu community we're not as familiar with.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point you make, that there's a lot of professions that have a potential to do really great for our community and also for the communities we live in general, that Hindus often don't pursue. I really quickly want to follow up on that idea, though, by suggesting that maybe the reason why people don't pursue these careers is because they feel as though if they did, they would face a lot of opposition within them. They feel as though they're not spaces that are welcoming. So is that something that you've seen pushback on? And how do you think people can kind of overcome that hump and embrace these these professions as ways to actually do social good?
Sorry, I'll try and make this brief, Umaji, because I want to hear what you have to say about this important topic. I think the biggest thing that young people can do is to have a plan. So you don't just say, I'm going into political science, and your elders, if any of you young people are listening, they're going to ask you an important question. Well, what are you going to do with that? I studied religious studies, and my elders had a lot of questions. The aunties and uncles, my parents were like, what are you going to do with studying religious studies, which is a very valid question. It's not an illegitimate question. So to have a plan and to look up what internships do I need to get which jobs, and to explain to our elders, okay, these are the jobs. This is what I need to do to get to those jobs. These are the degrees I need, the certification I need. And this is how much they pay. This is where they're located, to really get into the details and share that information. I think that's the best way to deal with pushback, is to be prepared and to be, have open communication. And then once we share that, this is a high paying salary and I'm very interested in this, and this is why I think I would be good at this profession, then, our elders will always understand. And, as, parents and grandparents, when we provide that opportunity for younger people to explain, why are you interested in this? What is the salary? What are the challenges you may face? Going into all of that in detail will only make us stronger as families and as communities.